So has the next phase begun when it comes to the internet computer? I'd like to lean towards hypothetically yes in my perspective, and the reason why is because did you know that Dfinity recently announced how WordPress now runs on the internet computer, which I think is a pretty monumental milestone, and I'll get into that in today's video, and also later on, I'll talk about the recovery that ICP has had in the past 24 hours, being at almost 10% actually. But I first want to clarify, nothing I say is financial advice, and I'm not telling anyone to do anything. This is, again, just purely my perspective. But did you know that, again, recently it was announced that WordPress now runs on the internet computer? Now, I've taken the liberty to do some research, and what did I find? I'm just going to showcase a very simple statistic that kind of amplifies, I think, just the magnitude of that announcement. For instance, we have to take a look at it. When it comes to like sites and stuff like that, guess what? On the internet, WordPress, it powers around 43 to 45% approximately of that, again, of sites basically. That's really massive. I mean, that's almost half if we think about that. So it's only fitting, right? The internet computer, there's a literally internet in the name. So, now WordPress running on the internet computer, I just think it kind of makes sense. Now, granted though, people like to say, but like, why would anyone even choose the name the internet computer? Well, it's because why not, right? I mean, if we take a look at the core focus of the internet computer, I mean, historically, it's trying to decentralize the internet. So when it comes to that, what is the name supposed to be? I mean, what are they going to name it? Transformers 25? Jumanji 26? It just kind of doesn't make sense, right? I mean, the internet computer, I think, is a quite fitting name actually when it comes to a project like this, but that's just my personal perspective. But besides that point though, if we take a look at, let's say in the case of the internet computer, having WordPress even just now being able to currently again now run on the internet computer, I think it kind of showcases the effort that Dfinity has been putting in. This is not really that possible without that effort, in my opinion. But let's move on beyond that, because in the past 24 hours, the recovery has been almost 10%, which people like to say, it's only like almost 10%. That's kind of bad. But we have to think about it, right? For quite a while, the internet computer hovering around $2.50, very boring, and quite frankly, a lot of people just kind of, I guess, forgot about the internet computer. They kind of ignored it because they're just like, it's kind of doing nothing. But here's the thing. People usually only care about something after it's become famous or after it's doing something. In a sense where I even used this example in one of my previous videos, but let's just rewind the clock, right? Like let's say 35 years ago, who was caring about Jeff Bezos then? I mean, a lot of people now care about him, but 35 years ago, it's a different case. ICP at around $2.50 is kind of like Jeff Bezos 35 years ago, maybe, right? In terms of, did anyone really care too much about what was going on with Jeff Bezos back then? Who knows? So when it comes to ICP, the attention wasn't too good. Not a lot of people really cared about it, but we have to think about this. Even with just an almost 10% recovery, suddenly the kind of sentiment has sort of roared back, right? It has kind of, I guess, had this resurgence, and that's just almost 10%. During an altcoin season, or let's say during a time when the market sentiment is doing a lot better, sometimes almost 10% in like 24 hours, sometimes people consider that a little bit bearish if, let's say, there was different market conditions. So that's the thing. So when it comes to this, what would happen to the attention, sort of the, I guess, notoriety if, let's say, it was 30%, 40%, 50%. That's the thing, right? If it's amplified from kind of the increase in the amount of attention that we see as of late, it wouldn't surprise me. However, also, people have been asking me, what has caused this, like, slight recovery when it comes to ICP? Now, I think there's two reasons, right? Probably the first being because Bitcoin is now above 80 grand. So, of course, it has kind of affected the market sentiment in a more broader scale. Not to mention, again, seeing the news as to how WordPress now runs on the internet computer. I think it was a combination, right? Or as Drake, the musician would say, combination. It's been I guess, this quote unquote perfect storm in a sense, in a good way, right? Where we saw that news recently in regard to WordPress, and then now we're seeing Bitcoin at above 80 grand. Now, people have been asking me though, but again, when is ICP ever going to see what it's seen, I suppose, or what it's reached. Like just even back in 2024, in which case we saw ICP reach almost $15 in December 2024, and actually almost $19 in April of 2024 as well. So we've seen that before in 2024. Now, what would I think would be able to kind of hypothetically allow, who knows, maybe for that to happen? Now, there's no way to know exactly, but I think Bitcoin would have to probably be above 100 grand. That's just the way to take a look at it, especially given the current market, sentiment when it comes to altcoins and stuff like that. I think it would need, Bitcoin to maybe go back to above 100 grand. That's just my perspective, and maybe kind of sustain it for quite a while. But if not, if Bitcoin just stays at like 80 grand or something like that, it'd be pretty tough, for ICP to ever even see like above $10, maybe, in my opinion. But also on the flip side, right? If ICP maybe just goes to $10, we're currently over 3 times lower than that, which is like something I would definitely not complain about, but that's just my mindset. And surprisingly, right, if we take a look at it, actually back in November 2025, when like altcoins were not considered to be doing the best whatsoever, we saw like ICP go on this rally of its own, sort of, and it was almost at $9 at that time. So still, it's like over 3 times higher basically than where we are as of right now. Granted though, it's still below $3, but in just kind of my perspective, I mean, if I take a look at Warren Buffett, is he acquiring, right? Is he dollar cost averaging when it's low or when it's at the top? I don't know if he's doing it near the top, right? I've noticed that he's doing it when historically things are kind of low. So I get it. Seeing things that are low, it may seem like very bad at first glance. And I get it. It's not good for the sentiment, but because I'm looking to dollar cost average, I'm not going to complain. That's personally for me. I mean, we take a look at it, for instance, right? Warren Buffett, through Berkshire Hathaway, take a look at when he acquired like stocks when it comes to Apple. It was like, at a time when it wasn't like so dynamic in terms of the price. But yeah, besides that point though, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but I'm just saying, when I take a look at it as well, people like to say, but yeah, the internet computer, it's still not such a dynamic project. But it's dependent on a case-by-case basis, right? I mean, at the same time, if we take a look at it, is it the most famous project of all time? No, but it's not necessarily the worst either, in my opinion, in terms of a fundamental perspective, because if a project is able to connect Web 2 and Web 3 without oracles, if, let's say, a project like this now, we see something like WordPress and how that can run on the internet computer, like, would I consider that to be like something that's so fundamentally bad? Not to mention, the internet computer has an aspect of decentralized AI. So at the end of the day, AI, it's a pretty big narrative when it comes to stocks, hasn't really kind of had that sort of attention yet when it comes to this space in a massive way. But what happens if it does? The internet computer is kind of waiting right there. It's kind of like waiting like Batman, in Gotham City. That's the way to take a look at it. Kind of waiting in the wings, right, when it comes to the internet computer, because it already has that emphasis when it comes to AI anyways. And if we take a look at Dfinity, people like to tell me that, they're not really doing much, but I think people are still kind of ignoring, right? I think some people have actually forgot about this, surprisingly, that there's still Caffeine AI, right? A self-writing apps platform. We already saw version 3. We already saw as well, OEC version 2. So in the grand scheme of things, that was kind of ignored for quite a while just because the price action when it comes to ICP was not doing the best whatsoever. But at the same time, in my opinion, sometimes people only usually care about it after the charts have done something. But I want to care about it the most when things are being ignored, because if things are being ignored, if people don't care about it, usually the charts are kind of low. I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward when it comes to the internet computer. So hopefully y'all stay tuned for that. I just want to say thank you for watching. It's only the captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.